What's up everyone, Bradley Jack Design here with another design breakdown. This time we're going to take a look at this Kentucky men's basketball shoe graphic I created for the Kentucky men's basketball team. So earlier in the season, they commissioned me to make this super cool graphic here. I'm not going to cover the whole graphic because there's a lot of layers to it and everything is pretty much can be shown in this one square here. So I'm going to show you what it took to create this graphic. And get rid of this one. This was a fun project to do just because I hadn't really done anything with shoes before, so I'm going to hop in here and show you everything it took to create this graphic. So I'll start off with a black background. I have a photo of the earth that I found that I went ahead and stretched across the whole canvas. So the whole canvas was 2000 by 8000. This one's 2000 by 2000. So we're only seeing a little bit of it here. But I went ahead and threw a gradient map on top of that with the Kentucky blue on top of it to make the earth blue instead of the original color. This space was a little too bare for me, so I wanted to add some stars to that. So I have a stars layer, and I have the earth masked out below so you can't see, so the stars aren't on top of the earth, so they're actually behind it. I have a level layer to get rid of some of the extra stuff that we don't need in the background, just to add more contrast. I made it black and white with a gradient map. Well, the gradient map's set to 70 actually. I wanted to keep a little bit of the color, so when I use this gradient map, it adds some blue back into it using the Kentucky blue. Then I added an additional gradient map on top of that, set to overlay at 70%, which deepens the blue, adds a little bit more saturation back into the background. So that's the background, pretty simple, just photo some stars, photo the earth, a couple gradient maps. Then we have the bulk of what this is, the shoe. So let me get rid of all this stuff, turn off all of these layers, let me show you what we've got going on. So it starts off with this awesome photo they supplied of this shoe that Kentucky has. I went ahead and did some edits to it. Tiny bit of a blur to it as well. This is mainly just some camera raw and some sharpening. I then went ahead with a screen layer, went ahead and brightened up the edges, did that a couple times with two screen layers. Then I have a layer with some curves adjustments set to it that I went ahead and added to it to brighten up the edges even more. And then to brighten the edges even more, I have a levels layer set to screen to brighten up the bottom a little bit and the edges as well. So after that, I have this white layer here, which is behind it, as you can see, which pretty much is just glowing the bottom. It's adding a little bit of an outer glow to the bottom of the photo. So what I did for this was I think held down the command key, selected the layer, filled it with white, gave it a little bit of a Gaussian blur, and then masked out the top so it's just showing on the bottom. Then I added sort of these motion lines, sort of a ghosting effect from the sides. That's pretty simple in itself what I did. It looks like this. But what I did was I held down the command key, selected that layer, I made a new layer, went up to select, modify border, set it to probably 20 or 30 depending on the resolution of your file, and then I just kept moving them down and to the right, aligned them all up to be evenly spaced out, and then I have them set to screen at 75% with a little bit of some blurs to it, a motion blur probably going in this direction, and a Gaussian blur as well, and then another motion blur with no Gaussian blur on it, just so you can see this a little more defined. So that's the shoe. That's the bulk of what I did to create that. So that's a nice little detail, I suppose. I don't know. So then I added some information. So I just got a plain square here that's masked to the layer of the shoe. I masked out wherever the shoe is, so it looks like it's behind it. Then I've got the text of what the shoe is, a little bit of a highlight here on the left with the levels layer, and then I added a couple of details to it as well. So I just got some squares or rectangles I threw on here, masked 2 images of the shoe to it that are just some more details, added a curves layer to it to brighten up some of the spots. I used a bunch of different methods to brighten things up. Sometimes I use a levels layer set to screen. This time I used a curves layer with some curves adjustment to it. Shows you can do it any way, they all work. Then I have this orb around it, which is sort of the highlight of what this piece is. So this orb is easy to make. I'll go ahead and hop in here and show you what it took to make this orb. So it's pretty simple. We boil it down, so it's this big, weird, giant, what even is this file? Let's open that up. So this is a photo here. If I disable the layer mask, it's a photo of this sort of plasma-y looking thing. If I click even further, this is the original image. So I found this image on Unsplash, went ahead and downloaded it. It looks like I then essentially cropped it to this middle circle. As you can see here, crops it to here, so it's just outside the circle of the inside. Save that out, put that on a different file here, which is updated in Smart Object. I don't need to do that. I made it huge for some reason. I don't know why. But then I have it duplicated on top. I think actually what it's supposed to be, I think it's supposed to be this. So I have it here, and then I have it masked on top of it. No, that's not right. I think it's supposed to look like this. No? I don't know. Anyway, so I've got this here, masked to this bottom layer, and then I have a gradient map on top of that, set to the Kentucky blue to make it look like this. So if I get rid of this, I don't know why that's there. Oh well, it doesn't matter. So basically what I had was I had this image here. I went ahead and masked out this middle area that would have been too bright with plasmas hitting the edge. And then I set a gradient map with black and blue to really add a lot of more contrast to it, and then just have this sort of outer edge of the orb, so it looks like just sort of an orb. So that's how we got this here. So pretty simple. I went ahead and maxed out part of the areas. You can see here on the edges that showed the edges from the previous graphic or the previous smart object, so we're going to turn that back on. And then I have a levels layer set to screen where I brightened up part of the edges, brightened up a little bit of the shoe as well to solidifying and glue everything together. Then I did a couple other additional effects. So I added this photo of the Aurora Borealis, which I've used before. Went ahead and added that to the bottom, set to screen, added the same gradient map that I used in the background with the Kentucky blue, duplicated that so it brightened it up again. And again, in the general piece, it might be a little bit more effective to show you what this looked like, but it's cropped off a little bit here, but you can get the gist of what I'm doing. Then I tweaked a little bit of the levels. So you can see I added just a little bit of a glow at the bottom. You can see sort of these little sparks that appear from the original image as well, where stars were in that original image. I then added some lens dirts. So I've got a little bit of lens dirt here that I made blue with the Kentucky blue to be consistent. I have this sort of light leak lens that has some like dust and stuff on the front. So it kind of looks like you're looking out, maybe you're looking outside some glass and the glass is a little bit dirty, or there's stuff on the outside of the glass. Then I went ahead and added a gradient map to that to get rid of all of the warmth, make it more cold. So I said the color, I have this set to color instead of normal. If I have this set to normal, you can't really see it at all because of how I have the gradient map. It's blue and black. So I have this set to color instead. Then I have a screened layer. I think this is the same thing on the other edge. You can see here it's kind of showing up. So it's just this same layer duplicated over again for the next shoe. Then to add a little bit more contrast back to it, I have a levels layer masked to the lens. So if I move it over, you can see it's getting rid of it, and I just sort of adding it back in a little bit so it's not too gray. Then I have UK logo here at the bottom. And then I have a couple other effects. So I've got these chevrons that I wanted to show up as light. So I have this vector smart object of just some chevrons moving over to the side. And I basically just duplicated it a bunch of times and set different Gaussian blurs. So this Gaussian blur is set to 15. This one is set to, let me show you. That's set to 15. This one is set to 15 as well, so I just duplicated it. And this one is set to color dodge, and this blur is set to 15 as well. So I just duplicated it, changed it from screen to color dodge to see what it looked like. And then I did the exact same thing with this other additional logo that Kentucky uses as well. So I went ahead and just blurred it, set it to screen, and probably color dodge. So I did the exact same thing to make it so there's sort of these glowing lights in the middle of space. Then final thing is I added a color lookup to it of Crisp Winter that adds a little bit of blue to it. This is set to 20%, brightens everything up in general. So that's this Kentucky graphic. I did that for each of the shoes, clipping them out. The shoes might have a little bit of different editing done to them depending on what the color overlay is, but that's what it took to create this graphic. So really what it is finding the appropriate images to use and how you can use them for your graphic. So, you know, I didn't make this cool bubble thing. I found a photo that was, and used one tiny aspect of it, blew it up, made edits to it, and threw it in the graphic here. Same with the background, you know, photos from NASA I think I found to use for that as well. So I hope you picked up something in this. If there's something that really stuck out to you that, you know, blew your mind or you didn't know you could do, drop a comment below and let me know. Also let me know if you want to see other breakdowns or tutorials. I'm always open to create more valuable content for you guys, so drop a comment below on that. And other than that, make sure to like and subscribe. Thanks.